Well, thank you for the prelude and good morning, everyone. Of course, I've seen most of you in recent months, weeks, and days, but it's nice to see Carlin and also Barbara, who I don't think I'd met before. So here we go. Opening words. Here we gather across the miles. Here we become community again, even with distance. So let us see and hear one another in courage, curiosity, and kindness. Welcome to this first service, this first live service since the 1st of March, the 8th of March of this year.
So again, welcome everyone to this first live virtual service. And as Alex pointed out in our rehearsal the other day, this is a first in the almost 200-year history of this church to meet this way. And we created another first, I assume, earlier in March on the 15th, when we began doing recorded services, which were not exactly a meeting as this is. The only announcement that I have is that just before the prelude, which was beautiful, thank you, Amy, started, the saying as it goes, the heavens opened up and it just started pouring rain on Water Communion Sunday. So I hope as this water communion and in-gathering service continues, if you're hearing the rain or just feeling the humidity of this rainy day, we can celebrate our connection, our complete connection with the earth. So with that said, in a moment, we'll begin our unison affirmation and covenant. If you want to read along at home, please feel free to do so. Amy, I just need a little help. Oh, never mind, I got it. Thank you, hiding. There, I had faces over the words. Our covenant is to be a loving, joyful community that nurtures spiritual growth, promotes compassion, social responsibility, and service in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Our mission is to be a faith community devoted to love and respect, reason, and justice.
Karen, would you be willing to read the chalice lighting words? Because I am going to light, probably remember this chalice from a long time ago. Go ahead, Karen.
The flaming chalice is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. It is an everlasting flame for this community. It offers its warmth to those who are cold. It provides light to those who would see. It purifies and transforms this sanctuary and the sanctuary of our homes as we gather today into sacred space. This congregation, wherever we are, into sacred community. May its flame burn true and high and strong.
So I encourage you all to sing along with this, even though you're muted. It still is good for the soul for a person to sing. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirits of life, come to me, come to me.
So as we continue our service, we will share our joys and sorrows. And we have one from the chat. Oh, this is not, yes, but it's not a joy or a sorrow. So in the future, just so you know, if before the service you come in, you can go into the chat on the bottom of your computer and type in joys and sorrows, and then we will read them rather than trying to figure out doing them during this time on Zoom. And you can, Amy, can they be sent in? They can't be sent to the church. They need to come on this on Sunday morning in the chat. Am I correct?
I think we can do it either way in the future.
Okay,
So we'll talk to Jody and find a pathway that they can do it
great,
to the church, I think.
great. And I'm taking this moment to talk about this a little because certainly Reverend Alex, in every breathing breath he takes, and many of us in the congregation, are one of our main things is to find, we'll use Amy's word, pathways to keep us connected, to keep us together, to keep us in community, even in this physical separation. So we welcome and encourage your participation in something like Joys and Sorrows and whatever other pathways and avenues you find. And so let's let that be our joy this morning, that we are a community. We know and care about one another, and we have these avenues and pathways to be together in our hearts and in the resonance of our energy, even when we are not in person. And let us just let that joy go out into the world and hopefully permeate all those sorrows that we are seeing. Always, but in the amplified way we're feeling them in this time.
And Karen, thank you for that. We do have some joys and sorrows that have been put down.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to read the names because we're a small group. So Peggy Mogosh is holding up Alex and his cat. And Lori Parendes is lighting a candle of sorrow and concern for everyone affected by the huge fires in the western states. And she mentions California, Oregon, Washington, and if there are others as well. And Corrine echoes that by saying she is concerned about the wildfires in California and Oregon. Thanks, Alex.
So I'd like to take a few moments, especially with the joys and sorrows that people expressed.
Oh, we have
about
one
water.
more.
Oh, one more. Let's add
Yeah.
to it. Yes.
All right, let me pull it up quickly. This is from Peggy Mogosh again. Thank you to everyone who worked with the learning curve to put this together. And we will continue to do so, and hopefully those of you who attended can extend that gratitude by inviting others and encouraging them to come to service as well, so that we can keep this going in an ever-widening circle. Thanks, Peggy.
So let's have some quiet time. If you could get comfortable, if you're in a chair or anything that you would be comfortable in, And as all of our mothers said, straighten your back if you can and breathe in and out. And this is going to be a guided meditation. We've witnessed and experienced so much violence and death this year, the pandemic, the fires, the racial reckoning that is upon us now, the violence by law enforcement and so many others. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. Sometimes we can feel powerless, especially when we're isolated and alone. Perhaps many of us will remember Marge Piercy's famous poem, The Low Road, where she writes about powerlessness and how community can give us power. And this is the reason, or a reason, why we do church, why we bother to get together on Sunday morning, why the board meets, why all of us here have met so many times to do the work of church. At the end of her poem, when she has said how community can be so important, here's a mantra I would invite you to remember. She says, community starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again after they said no. It starts when you say we, and you know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. It starts when you care to act. It starts when you do it again after they said no. It starts when you say we, and you know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. Let's please sit with that for a short time and breathe about the power of each other and community. Thank you. If you hang on for a moment, Jenna has been in touch with me. She's got a Zoom problem. I'll bet none of you, except maybe Kirsten and Amy, realized that this was going to be a trial run because we knew there would probably be some bumpy spots today. So please understand that we'll be working on dealing with the bumpy spots, and look at the rain come down. Barbara, are you in the rain where you are? Well, you're muted, so. Anyway.
I'll unmute me. I don't see it here, but it looks
Okay.
like it's raining, but not really heavily.
Can you hear it? Can all of you hear the rain?
I can't hear it all. I'm very hard of hearing.
Okay.
In fact, I use Live Transcribe on my phone, to
Got it.
understand the words that are being said.
Okay. Oh, but I hear a kitty. Do I hear a cat someplace? Somewhere. Oh, okay. So anyway, this is the first part of our next adventure as a congregation. And as Karen mentioned earlier, it's another milestone in our history, having our first ever live service in video and not in person. The last service that I did was on March 1st, just before we ended live services at the sanctuary. And my subject that day was the journey of 1,000 miles. It was prescient, I think, because it seems like this year has been a journey of at least 1,000 miles, and we still have 3 months left to go. That's the way it's felt to me. I want to say many thanks to the board, the worship committee, Jody in the office, Amy, and also Christina, who left her CRE position to continue her education at Edinburgh University. They all helped to keep the congregation going forward, as many of you have over the recent months. And this is a normal Sunday where we normally would have brought water from our travels or from home to blend together in one bowl. That shared water would have been used for various purposes during the church year, for various ceremonies and rituals. But more deeply, it's a ritual of gathering of community from many different places. But because of the pandemic, we can't do that. So we're going to do it differently. Hopefully you all have some water in a glass, which we will use shortly in the breakout rooms. And I expect Amy will probably explain the breakout rooms, or else Kirsten will, before we do that. Just think of the water you heard just pouring down that Karen mentioned earlier. Just how much water is so important to us. We could certainly use it with the wildfires on the West Coast, where my family is not in danger, but the smoke is terrible. We watch it when our gardens and landscapes appreciate the rain and water they're given. And we know that water is a symbol of life and birth, purification and renewal. That's one of the reasons that we use the water for a water ceremony, usually about a baby dedication, to talk about birth and renewal and life and possibilities. So how do we use those today? Because we aren't in person. A couple of Sundays ago, I talked about the 2 C's, courage and curiosity. Courage is what's brought us through this year so far. Imagine what courage you have experienced or done this year. Wearing a mask is courage. Going to the grocery store is courage. Marching in a protest is courage. And think of all those essential workers and people who are working at stores who are tremendously courageous, and they have no other choice. And courage is what our religious ancestors had here in Meadville. Just think of the uncertainties they have faced since 1825. The Civil War, 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the flu pandemic of 1918. I'm willing to bet that there were times when they wanted to just throw up their hands and say, that's it, we give up. But they didn't, and we're not either, because we are their heritage. Curiosity helps us plan for the unknown future. How will we deal and face the race reckoning that we're doing now? What about the climate crisis? What about the economy? What about our family and friends and neighbors who disagree with us politically? If we can do this forward thinking and feeling with curiosity, well, what might happen? What's the best result rather than what's the worst result? And our religious ancestors believed in the power and importance of curiosity since 1825. Your website has these words on the homepage: a beacon for free thinkers since 1825. I think that's still true today, and that's curiosity as well. But today I want to raise the truth of kindness. Kindness for ourselves in turbulent times, kindness to others, because love always wins over hatred, as Martin Luther King said so many times. So shortly we're going to go into breakout rooms. Amy will explain how that happens. I hope everyone will have a glass of water handy. Earlier, I mentioned that water communion is about togetherness and being a congregation. Right now, right here, we are that congregation that started almost 200 years ago. When we go into breakout rooms, you'll still be the congregation. So how do we express kindness to one another as a church? Well, Amy's going to bring up the PowerPoint slide in a moment. But first of all, take time when we go into the breakout rooms just to say hi and introduce yourselves one to another. And Amy, the PowerPoint slide will probably be useful right now. There we go. And if you can see it, these are some of the ways in which we can use water. After you've introduced yourselves, ask yourselves, how do I use this water in kindness? Drinking it? I need a sip now. Pouring it on a plant, giving it to an animal companion. All those and other ways of giving water with kindness because our lives depend upon it. And I would ask you before we finish this service today, while you're still on the breakout room, Amy will say in advance what time it's time to come back, a minute or so. So I'd like us each to, at that time, raise a toast. A toast is, after all, a ritual of respect and appreciation. It's also a ritual and gesture of kindness. Many of you have probably remembered or even done toasts at weddings. Sometimes they can be a little silly, but more importantly and more often, they are a gift of giving honor and respect and blessing to whomever is being toasted. So I'd invite us to do a toast before we leave the breakout rooms. Mine would be this one, and it's true for all of you and all not here. I toast all those at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Meadville who have kept this church moving forward this year. May we remember to be kind, may we be without fear, and may we be together in the faith of the free, now and forevermore, for our ancestors and those to come. Thank you. Amy, could you tell us, or Kirsten, could you tell us how to go into breakout rooms and what will happen?
So I'm going to put you into 3 rooms, which means there will be about 4 people per room. You'll be able to unmute your mic and talk about these points that Alex has brought up, what you're going to do with your water in kindness, and what your toast might be. I will give you 60 seconds. I will give you, let's say, 2 minutes in those breakout rooms, maybe even 3. And there will be a 60-second prompt before you are brought back into this room. So I'm going to start those breakout rooms now. And you should have received an invitation with a button you can push to join your breakout room.
to the church. So, oh, Amy's joining us too. Okay, yeah. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
All I see is a big A, and that reminds me of a certain book.
Oh. So I forgot this was Water Communion Sunday, but I do have water. And the funny thing is I thought this morning that sometime today, this is from last year from Ohio Pile, and it's been sitting in on my altar. And I was like, I just need to take it out and dump it on the ground and let it mingle with the water. And then this. So that's what I'm gonna do with it. So anyway.
Well, I just got rid of myself and went into the sink and got some water. That's how I handle the water. But there's been a lack of water around here. And in Silver Spring, where I'm from, they're flooding like they've never flooded before.
Oh boy.
Many roads are closed and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's a strange world we live in, to say the least.
Yes, it is.
Well, my water is imaginary, but I get all of our water at a spring that Peggy Mogish has been to with me out by Lionsville, and it seems very precious and very sacred. So I am we're supposed to share something kind we do with the water. I share it with all of my friends and my pets, that
That's
sacred water.
She
Yeah.
shared it with me, so yes, I can vouch for that.
That's great. I'm going to share my sacred water with my cats, my 2 cats that are inside right now. So I'm going to give you a minute to make a toast, but I have to leave the room to do that. So make a good one.
Okay,
Thanks, Amy.
thanks, Amy.
So I think we're all back, and I'm going to share our chalice extinguishing.
So if you, whoops.
There you go.
So if you would like to read along with this, and if you've lit a candle or a chalice, please feel free to extinguish yours as well. As we extinguish this chalice flame, we leave this gathered community, but we don't leave our connection, our concerns, our care for one another, our service to each other, and to our faith continues. Until we are together again, friends, be strong, be well, be true, be loving. We're almost finished with our service, but before we do, can you just take one little moment here to reflect on our own courage and curiosity and kindness and just who we are and how we want to be, having taken in all of this from the service? Where do we want to go as we go back into our wider or the other aspects of our lives? So just be with yourselves and each other in a moment, for a moment. So as we end our time together, we now have breakout rooms available for the next 30 minutes. So if you would like to stay and chat with anyone, again, as Zoom works, it will be another random selection. We can't kind of choose who we want because the Zoom program has to hold that in order to do it. It's part of the way the program is put together. Down in the lower right, after you go to, if you choose to go to your breakout room, there's a little arrow that says leave, or a little red button that says leave if you need to leave now. If you choose to stay in the breakout room, you can just stay, and either Amy or Kirsten will activate that breakout room selection, and you can stay for the 30 minutes or as long as you choose in that time frame. Thank you all for coming today. I think this is evidence of one of those places where it's not about how many, but it's how much and how deep we go. So thank you for coming. Come back again soon.